Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the underworld. The Star Wars underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun, and it's all-around good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
What's up, Star Wars fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. We are your source for the latest breaking Star Wars news and discussion each and every week. And this week on the show, Great Scott, a Back to the Future alum, has joined the cast of The Mandalorian. We also have Obi-Wan Kenobi director Deborah Chow talking about Darth Vader, and we are less than 2 weeks away from the rollout of Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker saga, and we've got some exciting updates and new glimpses at gameplay for that game. We're going to be talking about all that and so much more on this episode. My name is Chris, and joining me is my good friend, Mr. Dominic Jones.
Yes, hello, Chris. Hello, Ben. Hello, everybody. I just want to begin the show this week by giving a shout-out to my fellow panelists at the DIY Heroes Journey panel at Toronto Comic-Con this past weekend, Din, Kareem, and Alia. Even though I couldn't be there in person, they were all kind enough to make sure that I could be there virtually and be a part of this great discussion that they had at Comic-Con, and that we'll be sharing a lot of. We'll actually be releasing the full panel at some point very, very soon, so be on the lookout for that. But the whole thing, it just got me hyped for another thing that we're going to be talking a bit about this week. Star Wars Celebration. We got some guest announcements at last. It's finally real. Once that first guest announcement comes out, once that first guest announcement comes, that's when you know it's real. That's when you know you're in the home stretch. And so I'm looking forward to talking about that and talking about a bunch of things we'll be seeing before Celebration, hopefully during Celebration, and of course after Celebration as well. It's going to be a great show.
And on his way to his first celebration, making a pit stop at the Star Wars Underworld studio, it's Grogu. Grogu's very excited to meet 1 million people from a distance with masks.
It blows my mind, though. The fact that this will be the first celebration of Grogu.
Yeah.
That blows my mind. The fact that the last time we were together under one giant roof, we didn't know about Baby Yoda. That's insane.
It's wild to think back at that Mandalorian panel at Celebration Chicago and all of the nothing that they talked about during that panel, and it just just how excited they all were and how much they thought people would love the show and how they were excited to be teasing it, and all the while they had in the back of their heads this soon-to-be cultural phenomenon that we would be introduced to when the show began. It's kind of crazy to think that many all the close to the people that held the keys to the secrets.
It's like how all the negotiations about Disney, what was happening kind of during Celebration 6 in August 2012.
Yeah.
And certain people might have known certain things at that time. I'm sure Kathleen Kennedy did.
Yeah.
I still believe the conspiracy theory that the original plan was to announce the Disney sale at Celebration 6 during the closing ceremony.
Can you imagine what that must have been? Oh, that would have been an interesting day.
I remember they plugged the closing ceremonies for that celebration, and they said there's going to be a big announcement about the future of the saga. And we're all like, Clone Wars Season 8, here we go, baby. All right. Maybe we'll get some live action Star Wars Underworld news, something like that.
Yeah.
And then subtly they just took that out of the announcement. Like, it's almost like they realized, we're not going to have that ready in time. Take that off StarWars.com quickly. Delete that sentence. Get it out of here. But
also, like, it would have been that would have been a really tough thing to do in a group of, like, a crowd of people, because it's like, how are they going to react to that? Like,
at Celebration, people are going to lose their minds.
You think people would have? I think some people would be like, wait, what's going on? Like, they would have been a little confused.
I think there might have been like people fainting, like in the aisles. Like, can you imagine the amount of like just mayhem that happened online? Take that and put it in a building. Like, just do that. What happened on just October 30th?
Yeah, look, Celebration, there is an energy to Celebration and to any like big Comic-Con panel that cannot be matched and that you get caught up in. Like, we've been at celebrations where things that I was adamant that I did not want were announced. And I lost my mind about them with positivity and excitement. Like, I was adamantly against Palpatine coming back in The Rise of Skywalker. But when that trailer happened, and, you know, Luke says, no one's ever really gone, and it all fades to black, and you just hear, I was like, this is incredible. This is amazing. This movie's going to be perfect and flawless in every way. And you just get caught up in it. So I think the people in the room had George Lucas come out there and been like, you know, I've always, you know, wanted to have other people make Star Wars, and Kathleen and Disney are going to do that with episode 7, 8, 9. Everybody would have just lost their minds collectively in that room. People
I'm forgetting that the announcement was also the announcement of episode 7, 8, and 9, because that I think would definitely get a reaction. I was there getting about if those two were paired. Yes, I agree.
I still remember, and maybe this is one of those memories that I've made up in my mind, but I feel like there was an interview at one point during Celebration where Dave Filoni was like, you know, when George says he's going to do something, it may take a while, but he always gets around to it. And he just sort of like said this in like after someone had made a vague allusion to like the future. And I was like thinking about that going, that's interesting, Dave. Anyways, on to the next thing. And then when the announcement came, you know, months later, it was like, wait, what? Hold on. You announced, he said what, when? And he was trying to lead us in that direction, but
it's a wonder George didn't just like drop the bomb then, like, because he doesn't care. He didn't care. He never cares. Like, he would just be like, yeah, I've been talking to Bob Iger, and we're talking about doing some more movies. What did he say?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you know, it's one of those things where there were presumably a million billion moving parts to that deal, and so, you know, you can't. They didn't have all their I's crossed and their T's dotted in time, so they were like, all right, we'll show the 3D previews of Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith and pretend like that's the biggest Star Wars thing that's going to happen in the next 12 months.
So, longest waiting for introduction ever, but that other voice you hear and face you see is Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Yeah, you knew I was here. And I'll just say this because I usually forget to do this at the end of the show, so I'll just do it right now while we're talking about all the amazing things happening. We are now 12 days removed from the premiere of Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, 62 days away from Obi-Wan Kenobi's premiere, 63 days away from Star Wars Celebration Anaheim 2022, and 638 days away from Star Wars Rogue Squadron.
Ooh.
Yeah.
If it happens.
If it happens. It's a big.
It's you know, it's an if, but
in 638 days we might be seeing a new Star Wars movie. Yeah, maybe, kind of.
I'm feeling more optimistic about that than I was 2 months ago.
Yeah, me too.
There have been some stories in the last little while that make me think, you know, there's still something going on there. But, you know, since we're talking about Rogue Squadron, maybe we should just get this out of the way off the top before we do plugs and get into the main news. And that is this report that emerged this week that Michael Stackpole, the writer of the Rogue Squadron novels, or several of them at least, had been like brought on board to work on Rogue Squadron, the movie. This came out of a convention that he was at where he told somebody, or somebody tweeted about a conversation they had with him where they made it sound like he was like consulting on the film, that like Patty Jenkins had called him up to consult on the film. And this is not the case. He went on another podcast, the Around the Galaxy podcast, later in the week, and basically said, no. What's going on here is that Patty Jenkins and I had a brief Twitter exchange in December 2020. And she's been really nice about, shouting out the novels and everything, but I'm not working on it. They haven't asked me for my opinions. None of that's going on. He's just excited to see the movie. Like, in that interview we did with Around the Galaxy, genuinely seems like he's excited to be working on the movie, or not to be working on the movie, to go and see the movie. Like, he seems like he's genuinely excited about it, just as a fan, which is awesome. But no, he's not the writer. He's not the consultant. I don't know. Maybe they should ask him to consult. I don't see why they couldn't show him the script once and say, what do you think? Or bring him in for a test screening at some point. But yeah. So no, there's basically no there, if you were wondering.
Yeah.
Huh. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So plugs.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm like, what is that? I'm like, what does that lead into? Where's the segue? I can't find it. My segue broke. So we're going to get into more news in just a second, but in the meantime, make sure you punch that subscribe button on YouTube. That's right. We are on YouTube. You can see us on YouTube in glorious 1080p high definition. That means you can see every pore of our faces. So have fun. You can find that by searching for the Star Wars Underworld on YouTube. And we also have a super chat feature, which is another way that you can support us financially and guarantee that we will give your comments maximum attention in the live stream. But we also try to at least feature on screen all the good comments too that you guys leave, because we enjoy chatting with you at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 p.m. Eastern every Thursday. We also got some merch over on Patreon, patreon.com/the SWU. And that is where you can get those bonus shows that we do every week, where you can get the link to watch them live and interact, and where you can watch them later this week. Talked a little bit about the Netflix Marvel universe.
That aren't Netflix anymore. They're on Disney+.
That are no longer Netflix. So now do we call it the adult mature Marvel universe? I don't know.
No, I don't think we should call it that. I think
that doesn't work.
Call it the Defenders verse or something.
The Defenders verse. There we go. But the Defenders verse, not including the two other things that some of those characters were in.
Right.
Recently. Yeah. No spoilers.
I feel like I need to get out some red twine here and a bulletin board.
Yeah, so check that out, patreon.com/the SWU. We also got merch over at the Culture Slate store, including what I'm wearing now. We've got this shirt. It says, it's like a dictionary definition of wizard, and it says wizard, adjective for when it's just wizard. So that's a fun thing that we came up with over there that we're selling over at cultureslate.com/store. So check it out while it's still up there. And also make sure to check out all the other Culture Slate Network podcasts, including Star Wars Culture, Ion Cannon, and Chatter Squadron. They've all been making some really fantastic content on their YouTube channels. So go back to the Culture Slate channel, and you can see links to all their channels over there. I think we might have them as well on our channel links as well. So check that out. Star Wars Culture, Ion Cannon, and Chatter Squadron. We might have time for some listener feedback. Maybe we have some queued up, ready to go if we have time at the end of the show. And if you want to be in that queue, swunderworld@gmail.com is where you can send us listener feedback. So yeah, check out all that stuff.
All right. Well, let's get into it then. Let's get into the news, and we'll start this week with The Mandalorian Season 3 and another classic bit of Jon Favreau casting in this thing. This comes from The Hollywood Reporter. Christopher Lloyd is set to join Season 3 of The Mandalorian. This is what they write. Christopher Lloyd is adding another iconic sci-fi franchise to his storied career. The Back to the Future actor is on the call sheet for The Mandalorian, the Disney Plus Star Wars show that is currently filming its third season in Southern California. Character details for his role are being kept locked up in the trunk of a DeLorean, not a trunk of a Mandalorian, just a trunk of a DeLorean, but it has been described as guest starring in Nature. Lucasfilm could not be reached for comment. They tried. They tracked him down. They were following Kathleen Kennedy around in their car. It was bad. No. So okay, Christopher Lloyd, Doc Brown is going to be in season 3 of The Mandalorian. What do we think? How do we feel?
I heard that his character name is DeLorean. That's what I heard. And it just makes all the sense.
And at some point, somebody gets really disappointed in him, and they go, "Oh man, DeLorean."
Oh, that would be funny. No, this is great. I love Back to the Future. It's really fun, like 80s film franchise. I haven't seen Christopher Lloyd in much else. I think while you all are talking about him, I'm gonna look up all the movies that he's in, try to jog my memory and see if there's any other strong memories I have of him. But obviously from Back to the Future is my strongest. So yeah, this is really cool. I think it's awesome. And again, like a lot of things, I think it just comes down to how his character is written. I hope that it's kind of not just a gimmick and that it's a great character, which I trust that they'll do because they've done that with other kind of cameo type things from big people. So exciting stuff, fun stuff.
Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Back to the Future is genuinely one of my favorite franchises of all time. So like, and this seems like straight up like the casting you would both not expect, but also when you hear it, you're like, that makes complete sense that they would get that guy to be in season 3. And just, goes back to that, like they're just grabbing some really interesting people to be in, Mandalorian and do these side characters. And who knows? I mean, we've had some major actors be some very small roles. You had Michael Biehn in The Jedi. You had, so many others. Amy Sedaris, who obviously has expanded her role over the course of the series, but who knows? He could be in one episode and die at the end. Who knows? I am interested to see like where he goes, because like outside of Back to the Future, from what I know, he's kind of famous for playing some kind of darker, even villainous characters. I'm thinking of Dennis the Menace. I'm thinking of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I'm thinking of there's another one that's completely slipped my mind. But like I think Uncle Fester, I'm pretty sure, in the Addams Family movie. I'm pretty sure he was in that. So
Yep.
like some kind of creepy, off the wall characters. He's obviously an incredible actor, got a lot of range. So like, but I wouldn't necessarily expect him to come in playing a mad scientist, even though he's great at doing that. Would be interested to see like what else they could get him on, and obviously there's a lot of different directions this could go.
Christopher Lloyd was in Radioland Murders.
Oh my! So there's a Lucasfilm connection. Oh my god!
Wow, that's why he was cast in this. It's
Classic
awesome.
Lucasfilm. Just bringing it all home. Bringing it all home. Well, look, Christopher Lloyd. Ben, you just said you're hoping he doesn't play kind of the mad scientist role that we think of because we think of Doc Brown, but Matthew Hardy in the chat does make a good point. He seems like a mad scientist type, and he has connections with the cloning efforts that are being hinted at.
What if he's like in the same vein of like, what if he's Dr. Pershing's boss?
Yeah.
Like, he's one of the Kaminoan scientists left over from Mount Tantus. So if we're connecting all that stuff together, like that would be really interesting.
Yeah, it would be really cool. And that feels like, I suspect Favreau is bringing him in to play to his strengths and play to him being, a little bit of an eccentric. I will say, like, I've been working my way through The West Wing. I've been watching that show. And just recently, like this week, I watched the episode that he guest starred in that. And that was him giving a much more like reserved performance. He wasn't overly eccentric, let's say. He was playing like a constitutional scholar kind of thing. Like it was, if you didn't know that was Doc Brown, it wouldn't have immediately jumped out at you that it was Doc Brown. So he could play, something more along those lines. But I have a feeling if they're bringing him into The Mandalorian, they want him to not quite do the full Doc Brown thing, they want him to lean into that a little bit more. And I like the cloning angle. That would be a fun little connection. That would spawn a million clickbait articles and videos about people saying, "Are Star Wars and Back to the Future take place in the same universe? Because this is Doc Brown's great grand uncle is working for the Imperials," or whatever.
Multiverse confirmed.
Yeah, the multiverse. They're all, and that was Back to the Future. Kathleen Kennedy produced. There's another connection for you. We'll just get all those Lucas, Spielberg, Kennedy, Marshall movies all under.
Are you sure that he's not going to be the gateway to the world between worlds? Mandy, we gotta go to the world between worlds, Mandy. Let's go. Let's hop in this car, Mandy.
George points out, I forgot he was in Star Trek too. So he's collecting all the franchises.
I mean, I just went through his IMDb, and there's not a lot of things that I've seen that he's in, but he's in like 1,000 things. Like he just plays little roles here and there. Like he was in like Cheers, NCIS, just like all the big shows he's had a guest appearance in. And that's really cool.
Yeah. And so it just makes sense that he would be in Star Wars too. It just makes sense. No complaints. No complaints is, I guess, what I'm getting at. No complaints. It's going to be fun to see where he winds up. So we'll move from Mandalorian, which is coming up later in the year, to something that's a little bit more immediate, something that's a little bit more, next up, I suppose, and go from talking about a character who we don't know much about, who's probably a new character, to perhaps the most iconic character in all of cinema. Let's talk a little bit about Darth Vader and his role in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, because Deborah Chow was interviewed by Entertainment Weekly, or I guess this was part of their larger coverage that they're still rolling out about the Kenobi show, and she was asked about Vader in the series, and she talked a lot. She talks about the Obi-Wan Anakin relationship, and she talks about meeting Hayden Christensen for the first time, and they both have the Canadian connection, and they both met in Toronto, and for some reason nobody invited me to that meeting. I can't understand why. But the last quote that they have in the article, I think, is kind of interesting. I wanted to get your guys' take on this. Entertainment Weekly asks her, "What kind of Vader will we see here on the show? We only saw him for a few quick scenes at the end of Revenge of the Sith in that armor. So where does he pick up 10 years later?" And Deborah replies with, "For us, it's very similar to Obi-Wan in the sense that he's between the two trilogies. So he isn't the New Hope Vader quite yet. You know what I mean? So we are with the character sort of in the middle of this period. It's still Vader, obviously, but it's a Vader that isn't quite fully formed." Isn't quite as fully formed as A New Hope. What does a not quite fully formed Vader look like? We talked a lot about Obi-Wan being sort of between headspaces, between the Revenge of the Sith and the A New Hope headspace. What does it look like for Vader in this time period? I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think of this.
Well, by the time that we get to the original trilogy, Vader's set on his path. He says, "It's too late for me." And yet you have him, after he gets off the operating table, saying, asking where Padme is, and being very distraught when he finds out that she's gone. And so those are the kind of two Vaders that we know, is the one that's given up and the one that still, has feelings, in a sense. And so I think that this not fully formed Vader is going to potentially still maybe have some regrets about the past, maybe some attachment to what happened, and maybe might not be fully in the space of thinking that he's too far gone. There might be little glimpses of, maybe I could go down a different path than the one that I'm going on. Maybe there's more conflict in his brain. So I'm really curious to see that, and I'm curious to see if this show maybe solidifies him where he's at in the original trilogy. If something that happens in the show gets him to that point.
Yeah, it's interesting how, that is the discussion in the original trilogy is there's conflict in you. No, there is no conflict, all this kind of stuff. And it's going to be interesting to see, like, coming out of Revenge of the Sith, he's kind of screwed. His life's been ruined, and he really has no other path than to just go forward and just be this killer, just be this awful person, and serve Palpatine. And you get to the original trilogy, like, obviously there is conflict. There is him, that spark of hope has been ignited in him from Luke. Then you go backwards and you go to 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. Is this a Vader that's begun to doubt what he's doing, to maybe not necessarily buying into this whole Empire serving Palpatine? He hates Palpatine. He hates all this. He hates everything, and he hates himself more than anything else. And maybe something. I'm just thinking along the lines, just emotionally, Obi-Wan tries to save him, and maybe it backfires. Maybe it's just like Obi-Wan showing back up is the one thing that, like, sets him on course. Like, this is the guy I hate more than myself, and I can direct all my hate and, like, get this out of my system, and this is going to ruin me. And maybe this is kind of like, maybe it sets the tone for their relationship in the future, which is Vader's just like, I'm going to kill you because I hate you. And Obi-Wan's like, I've completely accepted that you are Vader. I'm not even going to mention your name. Like, your Anakin's gone. He's gone, and move on. What happens between those 2 points is fascinating.
Are Obi-Wan and Vader, this is something I'm wondering, are Obi-Wan and Vader going to have a conversation in this show that is not bookended or in the midst of a lightsaber duel? I hope so.
Yeah.
And how do you set up that conversation? Does one of them capture the other one? Do they agree to a parlay and have peace negotiations or something?
The negotiator.
Yeah, yeah. Like I that's something I think would be really cool because we're so focused on the rematch of the century, right? We're so focused on that, but the real meat of the story is these two guys, grappling with this traumatic event that happened to them that was Revenge of the Sith, and where they've gone and what they've done with their lives since then. And I it's one of those things. I wonder how much Anakin thinks about Obi-Wan between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, or Revenge of the Sith in this show. And does he only ever think about Obi-Wan with rage, or does he sometimes think about him with something between sadness and nostalgia? And if you cornered Vader at just the right moment pre this series, and you gave him some truth serum, and you asked him, if Obi-Wan Kenobi showed up tomorrow and said, "Come with me, let's make this right," would you do it? Might he be inclined to say yes? It's a little bit of a trope in stories, but also probably in life as well, that people think that, if somebody showed up and offered help to them, they would take it. But then when that help is actually offered to them, they turn it down for whatever reason. And Vader does say to Luke in the original trilogy, Obi-Wan once thought as you did. And so what if Obi-Wan shows up and he offers Vader, that olive branch? He offers him that opportunity to come back. And Vader swats it away, literally and figuratively.
That's one of the few lines in the original trilogy that actually makes more sense with this show being a thing than not. Because it doesn't seem like there's enough time in Revenge of the Sith to phrase that line the way. Once thought kind of makes it sound like a protracted thing, not just a one day event that seems the Revenge of the Sith seems to happen almost in one day. And so that's really fascinating. I hadn't thought of that one before. I thought of other ones, but not that one.
And you have, and it's always kind of been a weird thing in Revenge of the Sith for me, and I think a lot of other people, of like, you have that line in Return of the Jedi of Obi-Wan once thought as you do, as saying, in response to Luke saying, come with me, leave everything behind. And obviously that literal line is given to Padme in Revenge of the Sith, is come with me, leave everything behind. She's the one that is persistent about there's still good in him. Whereas Obi-Wan is not a thing. The proper line, if you're just talking about Revenge of the Sith, would be, your mother once thought as you do. Like, that would be like the accurate thing.
Yeah.
But
right.
we haven't seen Obi-Wan Kenobi yet. We haven't seen the show yet. And there very well could be, maybe Obi-Wan's motivation is not like, I didn't kill this guy, so I gotta go kill him. It's, I gotta save him. Like, there's still good in him. And maybe there is conflict in him that Obi-Wan senses, and maybe Obi-Wan inadvertently snuffs out that conflict, trying to save him.
Yeah, because the next time we see Vader, chronologically, is in Rebels, and he seems pretty solidified as the Vader we knew. Maybe he's not all the way there, but he's pretty close to it. He says to Ahsoka, Anakin Skywalker is dead. Anakin Skywalker is weak, so I destroyed him. He's really, seems, even when confronted with this, vision from his past, he seems pretty confident in his current identity. But it's interesting. The name that we keep bringing up in these discussions that has not been mentioned in any of the official stuff is, of course, Padme. And I think that's how you kind of have to differentiate where Vader is at in his life. Is he talking about Padme, or is he not talking about Padme? Because like you said, Chris, when we first see him in Revenge of the Sith, he's like, "Where's Padme? Is she all right? Is she safe?" And
I remember secret. Is it safe?
Yeah, I remember even as a kid hearing James Earl Jones say Padme, being like, "Whoa, it's interesting to hear that name coming out of Vader's mouth." It doesn't, in a sense, it doesn't feel right, because the Vader that we knew never talked about Padme. That was always something that Anakin talked about, and it felt like that was kind of the delineation point between Anakin and Vader, is that Anakin talks about Padme, Vader doesn't. Vader's buried that deep within him, and is not going to talk about it. And so the more we talk about it, the more sort of convinced I am that or the more hopeful I am that that Padme's legacy is going to factor into this show in a meaningful way. And again, I don't mean that there's a secret Natalie Portman cameo that nobody's reported on, although that would be cool. But that at the very least, that some of the characters are going to talk about her, whether it's Vader, whether it's Obi-Wan, maybe Bail Organa is going to show up. That he could talk about her. Who knows? Maybe Kumail Nanjiani's character met Padme back in the day and was like, "Yeah, it was a little friend of mine," and he can talk about her. Like, just somebody can speak for the departed queen at some point in the series.
I mean, and realistically, even if they don't get Natalie back, there's plenty of ways, even visually, they could work her in. They could replay scenes for Revenge of the Sith, dig up some deleted scenes like they did in Book of Boba Fett, and get some new footage for us, or just having Vader and Obi-Wan talk about Padme for like a minute would satisfy me.
Annie, I'm going to be in this Disney Plus show because of Obi-Wan.
Yeah. I've always sort of wondered that if you went deep enough into Vader's castle, does he have a little shrine somewhere to Padme where he goes to,
Oh.
Goes to feel things that he doesn't want to feel most of the time.
Oh.
And you can have a hologram or a painting or a stained glass window or something of Padme, of the good old days.
Because what does that do to hear, to see images of her, to think about her, to talk about her? What does that do to Vader? Does that bring him back to closer to Anakin? Does that bring the conflict back? Does that bring back how, there's good in him? Or does that just make him hate himself even more? The fact that she's gone, it's his fault.
That's what I would guess. Yeah. I think it would just contribute to his rage and make him use the dark side.
Because Palpatine does this. Palpatine literally says, "Okay, yeah, you're gonna have your castle on a lava planet, and I'm going to make you build it right and in view of the place where you had your worst defeat." Palpatine's like that. He's very dramatic, and he's going to he's going to just bring her up in just a random conversation. "Oh, I remember Padme said this." Vader's like, "No, not again."
Palpatine's just like, "I remember back in the day, I was talking to Padme Amidala. Did you ever meet her?" And Vader's like, shut up. But, yeah, that would, it'd be interesting. If I hope we have some way of visualizing, Vader's inner turmoil, and it would be interesting if that part of that visual is something of Padme, whether it's old footage, new footage, what have you, and then, if Obi-Wan brings it up and it makes Vader not only hate himself for what he did to Padme, but he's always kind of blamed Obi-Wan for what happened to Padme, too. "You turned her against me. You've done that yourself." That whole exchange. And that would potentially be enough. If Obi-Wan's trying to reach out to Anakin and saying, Padme wouldn't want this, that might be what makes Anakin snap and sort of say, you don't get to talk about her to me. And that's when he would swat away the Obi-Wan's olive branch of peace with his crimson red lightsaber, starting duel number 7 of the series, because they're going to fight in every episode.
Oh, man.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but yeah, check out this interview with Deborah Chow. It's on the Entertainment Weekly website. It's quite interesting. She goes into bringing back, some of the thoughts about bringing back Vader, what it was like to have him on set, what it was like to work with Hayden. It was cool, but that was the one line that really stood out to me. So I wanted to talk about it. Also in Obi-Wan Kenobi news. If you want an official plot synopsis for the series, here it is. This is what's on Disney+. During the reign of the Galactic Empire, former Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi embarks on a crucial mission. Kenobi must confront allies turned enemies and face the wrath of the Empire.
Huh.
Interesting.
That's about what we expected. Confront allies turned enemies. I can think of one.
Yeah,
one big
At
one.
least one.
One big one in that we know of.
And you got all the stormtroopers. There's
yeah. There were always rumblings, of Commander Cody.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a Bad Batch plot, but you never know.
It's got to be somewhere.
I
want to know what this mission is.
Yeah.
What is it? This is something I don't really know what this could be. So.
Yeah, the rumors are out there.
I think I remember one of them.
Yeah, and what could possibly be more important than his mission to protect Luke?
Yeah.
Well, to quote another Jedi Master, there is another. That was a terrible Yoda.
At Dominic J25, you spoiled the whole plot of Kenobi for me.
We have been speculating that for years. We've been speculating that for years since before this was a show. Go back to this being a movie. That was the speculation. What is big enough to get Obi-Wan to leave Luke relatively unattended?
Jar Jar.
Yeah, I'm
gonna save Jar Jar.
No, there's only one thing, and that would be Leia being in imminent danger. So take from that what you will. Take from that what you will. All right. From something we will see very soon to something we will probably never see. Let's talk about detours. Weird Al Yankovic. Heard of him. He was being interviewed this week on a show that's called the George Lucas Talk Show.
He was interviewed by George Lucas?
Well,
yeah, kinda.
From a certain point of view. From a certain point of view. It's a comedy show where George, quote unquote, and his sidekick Watto interview people, and they had Weird Al on, and they talked a lot about Star Wars detours, or they talked a little bit about Star Wars detours, and Weird Al revealed that actually they were working on a musical episode of Detours. He said, quote, "We were working on a Star Wars musical that was a 3rd season show. We were writing songs, and all of a sudden it was like, this is not going to happen. I don't know what I'm allowed to talk about. There were, at least half a dozen or more songs as part of the musical and various characters in the show. We actually recorded them singing their songs, and that was about a week before we found out the show was not happening." Wow. I don't know if those two events are related. But
oh no.
No,
hey, so what's George been working on now that we have the whole kit and caboodle? Oh, okay, Weird Al.
Weird Al and the guys from Robot Chicken are making a Star Wars musical.
Not sure how we feel about bad motivator romance here.
Yeah, Weird Al, although funnily enough, Weird Al actually said he's not sure if he was actually in that episode or if he was just writing for it. Like he definitely wrote for it, but he doesn't know if you cast Weird Al in the Star Wars comedy show and then you're doing a musical episode. I gotta think you would have Weird Al sing, but he doesn't remember. So he says, but he was the voice of 4LOM in the series. And if you ever saw that leaked vignette from the show, that you heard him as that character in there. But yeah, I feel like we were robbed. of this.
We absolutely were.
Okay. What do we have to do, Disney? Get you to release this on Disney Plus. What do the fans have to give you?
They made 3 seasons of this thing.
Well,
they were somewhere in some form or fashion.
Yeah, they were working on the 3rd season. It sounds like when it was cut off. So
he says like almost like a half dozen songs. You mean to tell me Weird Al made a half dozen new Star Wars parody songs? And I was just sitting on the shelf. you guys are mad for letting this put this into production right now. Come on.
This is worse than not showing the end sync. See it from Attack of the Clones. I didn't think anything would ever top that.
Where we know that footage exists, probably.
Oh my god! Yeah, I Detours is just such a bizarre mystery of what were they doing? What were they doing with this show? And it's buried away somewhere. It's locked away in a vault. We'll never see it. We'll never see it aside from that one little vignette.
No.
Season 1 is finished. All the season 1 is finished.
Probably.
They could just they have a streaming service. Just drop it. Just put it up there.
Why are the Ewok movies on Disney Plus but not Detours?
Why is one of the most confusing things.
They don't have to announce it. They just put it up there, and people will promote it for them.
A secret drop.
You don't even have to make it discoverable. You can just have it so if you happen to sit through the whole 2 Ewoks movies, it just appears as your suggestions to watch it next.
Make it a bonus feature on something really obscure that nobody's ever gonna think to watch. Make it a bonus feature on one of the Lego Star Wars specials or something on but one of the ones from back in the day, like the Yoda Chronicles or something.
Yeah.
We got
take. Sorry, I'm jumping all over your
Take it away with the super chat.
super chat from Joel Davis. Thank you, Joel. Hot take. I'm curious to see Detours come out only because I feel it won't be as popular now as it would have been today, and
Back
maybe
then.
if it
He means back then.
Yeah.
And maybe a bit dated. Yeah.
Yeah, but so is Ewoks, and we enjoy it. Like, we understand that everything on Disney Plus is a product of its time. They've gone through this many, many times. That's why they have the whole vintage section of the site. So people know the difference between what's new and what's not. And so it's like, there's no good reason for them not to put it out. Zero. It has to have something so egregious in it. And if it is, just censor that part. Just
Disney could make
You can recut it, yeah.
entire new streaming service. Let's just call it George Plus. And it's got everything on it. It's got the holiday special. It's got the in-sync cut of Attack of the Clones, and it's got this. Like, give it. I will pay money. I'll pull money. I've got the money. I will pay for this.
Yeah, I wonder, and dated can mean a bunch of things. Like, dated could be, there's jokes that at the time seemed like they were okay, but we now know probably not okay. But there may have been like pop culture references and stuff in there that were very relevant at the time that they were being written, but are, it's been 10 years. I was looking at a clip from the Detours panel at Celebration 6 in 2012, and just had to spend a few minutes grappling with the fact that it's been 10 years since they announced this thing. 10 years. A decade.
Look, I don't think anybody's going to argue that this is going to be good. It's terrible. It was going to be terrible, and there's nothing we could do about that except watch it and like The Room.
Yeah, Ben, you went a little robot voice on us. You got a little frozen, and this just feels appropriate that we take a little detour. Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Yes.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Star Wars rules. This is momentous. This is exciting. Why, hello there, Ben.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
He is the founder of the Star Wars Underworld, Mr. Ben Hart.
How's it going, everybody?
Fun fact, that was actually one of the songs written for the musical episode of Detours. It was
and another fun fact, this is totally true. I'm not making this up. Hannah reminded me earlier today that now a hit single on Spotify.
What? It's on Spot. Okay.
It is. I'm not making this up. It's literally on Spotify. I put it on Spotify.
I know what I'm doing tomorrow.
Yeah, just go watch Hannah Rayside's story where she's like, I was just listening to Spotify and it just randomly come on.
I love the idea of somebody who's never listened to the show before tuning in right now and be like, what the hell was that? And we're not going to explain it. It's funny to me though, like, Detours, they won't release it. They don't want to do comedy or it's dated or all these things. And yet, like, we get Lego Star Wars specials that are comedic takes on the Star Wars universe. We had an episode of Rebels where a character just burst into song for no reason. And it was awful. It was awful. And yet they won't do something like this where it's actually, like... You want to relitigate that one, Ben?
Yeah, I'll take that to my grave, man. That's a hill I'm dying on, man. AP5
go back and
forever.
Oh man, Chris, you've turned. You've turned.
Did I hate it before?
Yeah.
Come to the light side.
It was
How could I hate something Steven Stanton did?
It was one of our most contentious episodes of Live from Lothal. You and I hated it, and Ben and Kieran loved it. And
look, that's the one constant in Rebels. I loved Iron Squadron, and I loved AP5 singing. I was the only person on Earth who liked both those things.
No, but I'll be honest. I said at the time, I said back when that episode of Rebels aired, I didn't like it in the context of that episode. If they wanted to do a musical episode of Rebels, I would have been on board. And I will repeat that sentiment now, that if they want to release the musical version of Detours, they should just go ahead and do it. I'll be on board. But I think Detours was going to have a lot of music in it. Like one of the clips you can find on YouTube is the one I was watching earlier that made me contemplate the passage of time. Is a clip from the show where one of the stormtroopers reveals that they don't really feel at home in the Empire, and they think their true calling in life is to be a mattress salesman, and goes on to sing a song that's a parody of Katy Perry's what is it? California Dream or something? I can't
California
remember.
Girls?
No, it's Teenage Dream. That's what it is. I'm just smashing together Katy Perry songs.
Yeah.
Teenage Dream, but makes the song is Salesman Dream. And is dreaming, singing about selling mattresses. So
make me feel like I'm living a salesman dream. Sell mattresses.
Those are the lyrics.
I just made that up. I could have written this show.
Yeah.
Dang it. I thought you were going to go with Firework, and I already had boom, boom, boom. That's no moon, moon, moon in my head. Like I was ready to go with that one, and then you switched it up. I'm like, crap. That one in the track.
Wow.
Oh my God. I think we just came up with the next parody. To go on the album with the 12 days
Call
of Christmas
lawyer.
and Cad Bane shot the sheriff, all that stuff. Got to go on the next album. Boom, boom, boom. That's no moon. Oh my God. But anyways, what we're saying is the show is not dated at all, and it's totally current with relevant references. And should be released. So, you can check out the full episode of the George Lucas Talk Show with Weird Al. They get into some of the Detours stuff around the 1 hour mark. It's a 4-hour video. It's a long show.
4-hour stream.
Yeah. All right, I'm starting it now. Hashtag give us Detours.
Do
Spam
it
it on Twitter. Make it trend.
Make it trend. Yeah. We had a hashtag Save the Clone Wars. Now it's the hashtag Give Us Detours. Feels like an appropriately petulant way to ask for that show.
Yes, just perfect.
All right, let's get into it. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's talk about some Star Wars books news. Let's talk about Star Wars: Shadow of the Sith. This is the new novel coming out later this year, written by Adam Christopher, that takes place between the events of Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, and it's about Luke and Lando on a mission to find Exegol and coming up against Ochi of Bestoon, all that stuff that was introduced in The Rise of Skywalker. And this week, StarWars.com, they released the cover, which you see if you're watching. It's got Luke, it's got Lando, it's got Ochi. It's a pretty cool cover. I like it. It looks good. And they also released a little preview excerpt from the novel, and it's a pretty long segment from the book, but there's a part of it that I want to read to you guys. I don't know if you have either of you read this preview excerpt?
Not yet. I'm excited to hear it.
Skimmed through it, and I saw one name. I was like, ooh. So
okay. So to give some context, this is from StarWars.com. Then it says the novel arrives this summer, but today you can read StarWars.com's first excerpt from the forthcoming novel, following Luke's impossible journey from the Seeing Stone on Tython to the Ashy Sith world. So basically, Luke is okay. We gotta get to the super chat first. Jolie, you're ruining my flow with your super chats. Thank you, but you're ruining my flow. There's the super chat. Shadow of the Sith is my most hyped book of the year. Palpatine really is the Sauron of Star Wars, and Ahsoka is Gandalf. So here's what I want to say before we read this little snippet from Shadow of the Sith. Is I was intrigued by this book, but I wasn't necessarily looking forward to it. There's a lot of other Star Wars books that are coming out that I was more excited for, like Brotherhood, like the High Republic stuff. You have the Han and Leia wedding novel, all that stuff. Like I was more into those. And this was sort of something I'm like, I'm kind of into that. I'm kind of interested by that, but I'm not really excited for it. I still wouldn't rate it as my most hyped book, but this, what we're going to read here makes me, moves it up the rankings a little bit. It gets me excited. So this is Luke. He's on Tython. He's having a vision of Exegol, and he's beginning to wonder if he's going to ever be able to escape this vision and get back to Tython. So some terrifying Force things are going on. This is from the book by Adam Christopher. Luke fell backwards onto his elbows and gasped at the pains in his joints. I'm doing my best Mark Thompson impression here. And also in sheer surprise at the sight before him. Standing between himself and the wraiths was another figure, a man in flowing pale robes, his back to Luke, his head hidden under a voluminous hood. The entire figure glowed like soft electricity, bright in this world of endless night. When the lightning flashed, Luke could see the 9 solid wraiths through the form of the man who stood between them and their quarry. Luke's mind raced as he tried to identify the spirit of the Force who had arrived to protect him. Ben? No, it wasn't Ben. The robe, the man's form was. The spectral being lifted his lightsaber, holding it high above his head, the blade parallel to the ground. For the first time, the wraiths seemed to take note of their enemy. They backed away, 9 forms huddling together, blades lowered. They were screaming from their black bandaged faces, although Luke wasn't sure whether it was a real sound or just an echo inside his head. It was hard to concentrate on what he was seeing, the way the Force reverberated around the figure in blue. His entire vision seemed to buckle around him. The wraiths continued to back away, and then they vanished, their shadow shapes evaporating into dust that spun away on the last eddy of the dying world. For a moment, all was still. Then the blue figure turned around, his lightsaber extinguished. Luke pushed himself up onto his elbows. He blinked. It couldn't be. It couldn't be. The blue figure lifted his hood back to reveal the strong, sharp face of a young man, his gaze intense beneath a furrowed brow that was bisected by a straight vertical scar. His thick hair was shoulder length and had a slight wave to it. Anakin Skywalker reached out his hand. Luke took it, and everything went white.
Whoa.
Star Wars Shadow of the Sith by Adam Christopher arrives June 28th, 2022.
Woo. Dang, I thought that was going to be in the sequels.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought that was going to be in Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting, intriguing. Luke and Anakin together again for the first time. You know, like this is a book that's, you know, it's picking up on one of the storylines in Star Wars that I'm less than keen on, which is most things in The Rise of Skywalker. But that the idea of Luke being saved by his father whilst having a terrifying vision of Exegol. All right, Adam Christopher, I'm in. You're getting my $30 for this book. I want it just for this scene and this scene alone. Yeah. I'm intrigued. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. June 28th.
That's crazy.
What else have we got? All right, let's talk a little Lego Star Wars. It's of course, Ben, you mentioned it. Was it 12 days until?
12 days exactly, or 11 by the time a lot of you will be listening to this.
I feel like we should sing a song about that too, but we won't. We got 12 days or 11 days until Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga comes out, and lots of gameplay footage has been released over the last little while, and we're gonna just let some of it play in the background. If you're watching the video, you can see it as we talk about what's going on with the Lego Star Wars game. That this footage was released by IGN. We'll mention that as well. So we got a bunch of Star Wars actors coming back for Lego Star Wars. We got some familiar faces from the films and the animated series. So this comes from the direct Matt Lanter's coming back as Anakin Skywalker. James Arnold Taylor's back as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Corey Burton is returning as Count Dooku. The great Tom Kane is going to play Yoda and Qui-Gon Jinn. Anthony Daniels is going to play C-3PO. Billy D. Williams, of course, is just going to continue to embody Lando Calrissian in everything he does. And so they just followed him around for a couple of days and recorded some new dialogue for this game. Matthew Wood as General Grievous and the Battle Droids, and Sam Witwer back as Darth Maul and as Palpatine. So less than 2 weeks out from Lego Star Wars. Where are we with our hype level for this game?
I'm so stoked. Like, I don't know. I've many times talked about how excited I am for this game. Like, Lego Star Wars are some of my favorite Star Wars video games, and this one looks just, I mean, they've spent so many years working on it to perfect it and make it. I think it's going to be the best Lego game ever made. Like, I just could not be more excited.
Yeah, this gameplay looks like insanely incredible, and I'm only disappointed that I don't yet have a console to play it on. I'm working on that, but in the meantime, I'm just like, I want to get my hands on this thing because it looks it's a gorgeous looking game. I think this could be one of the best Star Wars games ever in regards to it has so many things previous Lego Star Wars games didn't, and it has a lot of games that even other Star Wars games didn't. It feels a lot like Battlefront in the way you have health meters above all the characters' names. Now you can do combos with the moves. It's not just a slasher game. You can actually if you do a certain combo, you can do different things with lightsaber combat and whatever. You can take cover. There's so many new things. This really is it's a Lego game, but it's all new. It's completely new. So I'm looking forward, and the fact that it's, as much as I love the original games, and I recently went through original trilogy, Lego Star Wars 2 recently. It was so much fun. But getting into this one is going to be really fun because, it's all new. They've redone all the scenes, and yes, even mumble mode is a thing. I just freaking love it. That's going to be the thing is you got to play it with the voices and in mumble mode. That's gonna be fun. Just play through the whole thing.
Yeah, that's just another excuse to play through the game multiple times. I wonder to complete your true Jedi status across the whole game. Do you have to play it in both speaking mode and mumble mode? It's crazy to me looking at the gameplay, how much video games have changed since the last one of these. I'm looking at this stuff that we're watching, and it's scenes from A New Hope, and I remember playing those games in the original trilogy version of the original Lego Star Wars games, and the movements are so much more dynamic. There's so much more you can do. They look like when Han Solo is shooting at stormtroopers, it looks like something out of a proper first-person shooter video game, which I never felt that, or I guess it's a third-person shooter, whatever. Which I never felt that about the old games, and so it's just wild that they've managed to update this game and update this style, and I hope that it lives up to the expectation. When Ben and I both buy our Switches next week, which I think we at one point said we were going to do, but at this point, I don't know.
I think I'm going to get it on PC because I want to stream it. I want y'all to be able to watch me playing, and I think the easiest way to do that is to get it on PC.
And see, I was going to get a Switch, and then this little thing called Star Wars Celebration and plane tickets and all that stuff happened, and it has to be put off a few months.
Yeah. We'll get to it eventually, Ben. We'll get there. We'll play it someday.
One day, I'll be in this podcast and being like, "Hey, Ben, I don't know. I'll just be I'll be over here playing it, and you guys will just let me know when you need my thoughts because I'll just be engrossed in that."
See, I'm just gonna we're gonna FaceTime you, Ben, and then I'm gonna be playing it. And I'm all right, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? What button should I press?
All right. So Lego Star Wars out in 12 days. let's keep going. Let's keep going through the news. Big news. We talked about this a little bit off the top, but we've got our first guests for Star Wars Celebration 2022. They've been announced. It's real. It's happening. This was announced by us on StarWars.com, and of course it's up on StarWarsCelebration.com now. But we've got some celebrity guests who are going to be there, and then some Lucasfilm people and some Star Wars authors and cool stuff like that. So Anthony Daniels, C-3PO, he's going to be there. Ashley Eckstein, Ahsoka Tano, she's going to be there. Ian McDiarmid, the Emperor's coming. Yeah, he's going to be there. Doug Chang, iconic designer and vice president of Lucasfilm now, worked on the prequel trilogy, the sequels, The Mandalorian, all that good stuff. He's going to be there. Amy Ratcliffe and David W. Collins are going to be back as stage hosts, which is tremendous. They always do a great job. Dan Zier, Star Wars author and host of the Coffee with Kenobi podcast, is going to be there. That's cool. And Steve Sansweet of Rancho Obi-Wan will be there, and he'll be bringing some Rancho Obi-Wan goodness to the show floor. That's always one of my favorite things at Celebration is the Rancho Obi-Wan mini exhibit. And it's like, I remember at one point Steve said it's like less than 1% of 1% of everything that's in Rancho Obi-Wan, and it just gives you a sense of how massive his Star Wars collection is and why it is, the Guinness Book of World Records, largest Star Wars collection. So that's always something you should make time for. And Ian McDiarmid, Anthony Daniels, and Ashley Eckstein, those are three sort of classic guests. If you're interested in seeing a good entertaining panel, would definitely recommend all three of them. I know Anthony Daniels has a bit of a reputation because he's like aggressively British, and sometimes people take that as him being rude and mean. But I think you have to take everything he says with with the assumption that he's kind of doing it tongue in cheek, and he's kind of playing up his protocol droid-ness and everything. So there it is. Star Wars Celebration. It's real. The guests are there, and they're going to be signing autographs and all of it. Official Pix is back. Look at that. It's feeling like the good old days. Feeling like the good old days.
Awesome.
Yeah. Any thoughts on this group of 8 people that were announced for Celebration?
It's literally like all the people, like every single one of these people. I would have, if I bet on it, I would say all these people are going to be there anyway.
Yeah, that's like it's not very shocking.
Like, it's good to have this news. It's good that they're finally announcing guests. Like, completely 100% unsurprising.
Yeah, these are the easy, obvious ones.
Usual suspects.
Announcing first.
What guests? What's your dream guest? Who do you want to
Natalie
show
Portman. Natalie Portman, for sure.
Ben and Hayden on screen, on stage. Like, come on.
Okay, right? I mean that one's gonna hapen. What's one that's not gonna happen that you would like to see?
Oh,
happen?
Natalie Portman's gonna happen too.
Natalie Portman's not happening.
Oh, that's
she's not showing up for the 20th anniversary of Attack of the Clones panel.
But that movie made her.
Come on, you got to give her the Hayden treatment. Got to get her up on stage so we can cheer and clap for 20 minutes.
I'm not saying she doesn't deserve it. I'm just saying that one's not happening. That's one I was just I'd love it if it would, but it's not happening.
I've never seen Natalie Portman with my human eyeballs before.
It's a very strange way of putting that.
I've seen her on screen, but I've never been in at a convention or event where she's been at. She's one of the few people that has influenced my life greatly that I haven't been able to at least see somewhere. So that's why I'm that would be such a great opportunity to do that.
Yeah, she did pop up at Comic-Con to promote some Marvel stuff.
Yeah,
a couple of years back.
She did. Yeah, I missed that.
If I could see. If I think D23 is this year, if we go to D23 and they're promoting that new Thor movie, I'm sure they'll bring her out on stage for that.
And see, that was the one I thought, like, after Thor Ragnarok, when they were like, oh yeah, I broke up with Jane and whatever else, I thought, like, oh yeah, she's gone, she's never coming back, and it's fine, whatever, like, she's off doing better things. I was genuinely shocked when they're like, oh yeah, she's coming back, she's gonna be Thor now, like, of course. So, like, never say never on any of these things. I didn't think freaking Harrison Ford was going to come back, for crying out loud. And then we're getting Luke and the Mandalorian. Come on, where's the benchmark here? Like, the things that can't happen.
Yeah. It's true. Jesse Bennett, I think, trolling us a little bit after last week. Samuel L. Jackson with the announcement of the Windu show.
Oh, now that would be awesome.
That would be fun. I think they should get Sam Jackson out to one of these things. I think he'd have a good time.
Sam Jackson, Natalie Portman, Daniel Logan as Boba Fett, Aurra Singh's not dead yet, and that guy, what's his name, Doug Wrangler, who played Quinlan Voss, is back. That would be my dream Star Wars show.
The adventures of Padme, Boba, Quinlan, Aurra. I mean, sure, like a Suicide Squad. You know, Magnificent Seven kind of thing. You know,
I mean, it would be Lethal Trackdown plus Padme, basically.
Yeah, basically. Something that probably will happen at Celebration is the proper reveal of the Jedi Fallen Order sequel. We're talking trailer. This was reported by Jeff Grubb, the noted video games journalist and scooper. That's what Lucasfilm's planning to do. They're planning to release the Jedi Fallen Order sequel trailer at Celebration in May, and that'll be kind of the big launch for that game, as I think everybody is expecting. No real surprise there. It'd be a bigger surprise, I think, if they said they weren't going. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of this. That was one of the highlights of Celebration Chicago, was the Jedi Fallen Order trailer there. Yeah. And I like these the Celebration trailers because they tend to be more focused on story than gameplay. Yeah. Like the later trailers, I always find I'm most excited for a Star Wars video game when they first announce it, and I can just pretend that it's a show or a movie, and I don't have to look at any gameplay. And then as we get closer and closer to the game and it becomes all about the gameplay, I'm like, meh, less interested. Show me those cutscenes. Show me some cinematics. And Fallen Order did that excellently at Celebration Chicago, and I expect them to do it again in Celebration Anaheim.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'm really excited for this game as well. Like, I'm gonna get distracted by Lego Star Wars for probably a year or two, but I'm also very, very excited for the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order, because that's also one of my favorite video games, and I can't wait to play something similar to that.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to some listener feedback.
Finally, we're gonna do it.
Got a couple of emails here we can talk about here. As always, if you want to send in emails for us to discuss on the show, swunderworld@gmail.com is the place to send it. Again, that was it. 11-year-old email address is swunderworld@gmail.com. All right, first one comes from Robin. Robin writes, "Hello. This is to be fair, this is an older one. This is one that's been sitting in the mailbag for a
Here
while.
are my thoughts on The Last Jedi. I thought Rian Johnson did a great.
It's not quite that far back.
Okay.
This is what Robin says. Hello, I'm writing to say that I disagree with Dominic when he said that Solo should have ended with Kira taking over Crimson Dawn. I think that would have completely changed her motivation. The ending is perfect as it is because Kira chooses to save Han. I think she loves Han and realizes that the only way Han will be safe is if Maul believes that Tobias Beckett betrayed Dryden, and she stays behind to explain it to Maul. She knew that if she had gone with Han, then Maul would have pursued them and Han would not have been safe. She sacrifices her life with Han and stays in the criminal underworld so Han can go off and be the hero she wants him to be and not have to worry about Crimson Dawn. Had she stayed behind just to take over Crimson Dawn, it would have felt out of place and out of character. It would have made her a worse character, and it would have been a worse ending." Jeez, Robin, tell us what you really think. No, I I think what we're seeing here is Robin and I just have completely different interpretations on what Kira's motivations are in that movie. Because I think she chooses to stay behind. Not her primary motivation is not to save Han. All through that movie, she's telling Han, "We can't be together. I'm not who you think I am." And I think she at this point in her life wants to be, the go-to person in Crimson Dawn. She wants to be Maul's number 2. And so when she sends Han away, it has the added benefit of saving Han, because I do think she cares about him. But ultimately, had that series of films continued, I think there would have come a moment where she would have had to choose between Han and Crimson Dawn in a much more explicit way, and she would have picked Crimson Dawn. She would have chosen her personal advancement within the underworld over the safety of Han Solo. I don't see it as a noble sacrifice that she's making for her long lost love. I see it as a cold, calculated decision based on what will give her the most clout and the most cred in the underworld. And had we picked up with Solo 2 with her as the number 2 to Darth Maul, that would have been very interesting. It would have been very could have led to some great stuff. But I'm more I would think it would have been a more interesting direction to go, to have her go right to being that top person and have to make those decisions without the looming Satan-like figure with the double-bladed red lightsaber looming over her. I think those decisions that she would have to make about, does she save Han or does she do what's best for Crimson Dawn? It's a different calculation when Darth Maul is looming over you, because then there's the threat of death if you don't do what's best for Crimson Dawn. If you take that away and it's just an either or, I think it's more devastating for Han, and it's more interesting for Kira to have her choose to be the bad guy and choose to do what is best for Crimson Dawn rather than what's best for her old buddy Han. So, but that's just, what I think would have been interesting.
I'd love to hear thoughts and takes on this one, because my take is an understanding take, but not a favorable take to her character, which is, I feel like what she's doing is for survival. And while that's an understanding thing to say, like, okay, if you're doing it for survival, then yeah, that's justified, because the Star Wars galaxy is a very dangerous galaxy, and you can't just be an accountant in the Star Wars galaxy and stay out of trouble, because you're probably going to get blown up in some war at some point. So
Sheev's accountant.
Yeah.
to run the books for the Death Star.
Yeah, so it seems like it's very much a lot of times kill or be killed in Star Wars. And really, ultimately, what separates what we consider kind of hero characters from other characters is that the heroes are willing to die when it gets to the point where they can't justify a killing to survive. I think that's the difference. I mean, look at Luke Skywalker himself. In order to survive, he needed to kill the Emperor or kill Darth Vader or both. And yet he decided that he would rather die than do that. And because he didn't have it in him, that was above his character. And so he ended up surviving, but of course he became a husk of himself by the time The Last Jedi came around. And then he sacrificed himself again in that movie. So Luke Skywalker is an extremely tragic figure. We see him as this big bad hero because of, him surviving through 3 movies, but really his life is incredibly tragic. And I look at Anakin, look at anybody, all their lives, tragic. I mean, look at Leia's life, look at what happened with her family and son, tragic. Yeah. It's like, to survive in the Star Wars galaxy and not just kill everything around you puts you through a lot, and it's not easy. And so it really tells you why people would make decisions like Kira to throw away morals in a lot of cases and do things to survive, and such, because either sacrifice yourself or worse. And so, yeah, in one hand, yeah, she's not a hero because she didn't sacrifice herself. But on the other hand, she's, yeah, I mean, I understand why she's making the decisions that she is.
And I always interpreted the Han-Kira relationship, specifically that scene, as the ultimate divergence between their points of view on not just Crimson Dawn, but the entire galaxy, in the sense that Han is altruistic. Has this very kind of like don't care attitude about things, and it goes along, and he just doesn't care. Oh, they're gonna kill us, so what? We'll just outrun them. We'll just run away, and things. And Kira is like, no, it's not. It's not. You can't get out of this. It's just like, to stay alive, you have to, stay alive as long as possible, and stay in it as long as possible. And obviously, Kira, I don't think is completely right, but also Han does have the don't care attitude, which catches up to him later in life. This whole just pissing off people and dealing with crime lords and then going about his business does get him in a lot of trouble, gets him frozen in carbonite, among other things. So I think that whole back and forth is just like they're completely different points of view. He's optimistic, she's pessimistic, and it's the tragedy of that movie. It's just like they can't be together because they are on different planes, and because she's experienced all this stuff, he's kind of stupid and doesn't know about all the stuff that she went through, and doesn't realize what he's getting himself into. And she's like, I have to be on top.
Yeah, absolutely. Joel Davis coming in with another super chat. Thank you very much, Joel. We so appreciate it. The comics, he says, the comics are doing an interesting story with Kira of showing how regular people are getting swept up in these cosmic wars between Jedi and Sith. Yeah, check out the comics. The Crimson Reign, I think the series is called. I'm intrigued to read those when they come out in trade paperback form. I'll check them out then. Yeah, I think it's a very good read on Kira. I think that she's making a choice. She's making a calculated choice, and yeah, the Star Wars galaxy is a dangerous, dangerous place. That's what makes it an interesting place for stories and an intriguing place for these types of adventure stories. But ultimately, Han. She says to Han throughout the story, right? She says, "You're the good guy." Han is trying to pretend through that entire movie that he's the bad guy, but really we know, and she knows, he has a heart of gold. He's going to be the good guy. We know where he winds up. With her, I always read it as she's the bad guy, quote unquote, pretending to be the good guy. That, where Han wishes he could be this sort of Dryden Voss, maverick, villainous character, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have what it takes to be that. She does, but she wishes she could be off fighting for the Rebel Alliance and taking the coaxium and giving it to people who can actually make a difference in the galaxy. And like you said, Ben, that moment, that's where their stories diverge, and that's where they fall back into their regular into who they really are. And that's why I think she should have just gone and been, top person in Crimson Dawn rather than having to be the underling to somebody else, to another big bad villain, just to bring it all the way back. But like you said, Chris, there's you can understand how that is a calculated, rational decision within this universe, even if it's what makes her quote unquote the bad guy going forward. All that to say, great thing about Star Wars is that people read these things differently, and the way Robin looked at the movie is different than the way I did, and because we don't know what would have happened next, neither of us is right and neither of us is wrong. And even if we did know, still can't say one is right and one is wrong, because it's subjective. You know, people like different things, and so we'll just we'll agree to disagree and keep talking Star Wars. But thank you, Robin, for that email. It's always great to talk a little Solo. Let's get to talk about that. They should make more of those. They should make a sequel or a series. Yeah, do something like that. Something interesting there. Next one comes from Hugh. Hugh writes, "Hi there, Underworld. I wanted to weigh in with my thoughts after hearing the discussion on the fan discourse surrounding the films. While listening, I remembered the times that when I heard the narratives such as episodes 1 to 3 don't count, or we don't talk about the prequels," which I believe is the current Disney hit song running up the charts from a movie. It's behaviors like this that have occasionally made it hard for me to enjoy a franchise that I love, and the negativity surrounding the sequel trilogy even more so. If people claim that nobody, quote unquote, likes either the prequels or the sequels, then why have I come across so many amazing cosplayers dressed in clone trooper gear and Rey outfits representing those trilogies, for example? And who is this quote unquote nobody person? If it wasn't for the prequels, I wouldn't have experienced the Clone Wars era stories from Legends and canon such as Republic Commando. Also, if it wasn't for the sequels, I would not have read the Poe Dameron comic book series, which I adore, and I'd love to do a Resistance pilot cosplay of my own in the future. Lastly, I decided to look up videos of Galactic Star Cruiser in action, partly because I'm not part of the 25% that can afford it. Neither am I. As I watched the storylines unfold and the cast members interact with the visitors, I couldn't help but smile at what happened and have a good laugh. It reminds me of my Star Wars cosplay experiences at MCM London, and I can imagine myself interacting with the different characters, especially if I were to bring out my inner Rebel Alliance and Resistance selves to immerse myself by being in character. More importantly, it reminded me of the positivity found in Star Wars and why I still love it to this day. Keep it up as always. Thanks for continuing to be a great podcast. Rebel wishes, Hugh. P.S. I'm now debating how Sir Benjamin, the Star Wars gentleman, will settle in with the common folk aboard the Star Cruiser whilst being surrounded by a First Order occupation. Yeah, I feel like Sir Benjamin would be turning in the rest of us.
I feel like if I show up on that stupid Star Cruiser with that stupid hat, they're gonna kick me out. And if I'm talking like that, they're just gonna be like, "Wait, no, you don't fit with the thing here. You don't fit anywhere. Okay, leave."
They'll have the stormtroopers like actually pick you up, carry you outside, and then throw you across the threshold and be like, "Do you know
how much I'm paying for this? Put me down, sir."
I dare say. How dare you?
Unhand me, brigand.
Oh, man.
Yes, Ben, we now have to go to Galactic Star Cruisers so that you can at some point just get you don't even have to like have the stormtrooper grab you just have to get close enough to them that you can go, "Unhand me, brigands." Good stuff. Yeah, I just want to say I completely agree with what Hugh's saying, right? Like, you know, just enjoy the stuff you enjoy and let other people enjoy the stuff that they enjoy. And if that crosses over, great. If it doesn't, so what? You're going to find some things that you like. And even the things that you dislike may lead to other things that you do like, you know? So if maybe the prequels weren't your bag, but maybe you got into the Clone Wars, or maybe you loved Republic Commando or some of these other things. With the sequels, maybe that's not really your thing, but maybe Galaxy's Edge is. Or, you know, like, look, I just earlier in the show, Rise of Skywalker is not my favorite thing, but this backstory novel that's filling in all the gaps, Shadow of the Sith, had me so intrigued. We read an excerpt from a book on the show. That's how intrigued it has me. So, you know, these things, you know, they interact with each other, they cross over, they bundle up into bigger things. So it's just a matter of enjoying yourself and not trying to take away the fun that other people are having. All right, next up. So thank you very much, Hugh, for that email. Next up, we got one from Jonathan. Jonathan writes, "Hey dudes, friends, fellow Star Wars fans. spelled as dudes, Doods, which is the appropriate spelling. This is my third email, and I thank you for reading my first two on the podcast. I've saved those episodes. In case you aren't aware, that makes the listeners happy and keeps them involved. Thank you for what you do. Also, I'm still a Patreon supporter. I get entertainment from your show, so I feel like I should give back. Well, thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. That's very nice.
Great.
That's very, very nice. Now, tomorrow is my birthday, and by the time you see this email, it would be way too late, but I had a thought. My wife is taking me to Hollywood Studios tomorrow strictly for Galaxy's Edge. I'm excited and can't wait, but it's my first visit. I listen to your show all the time, and I can recall you talking about it a great deal, but I can't find any episodes on the podcast or the YouTube channel. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. My suggestion is to do guides or how-tos for various topics. For example, what to do in Galaxy's Edge, how to prepare for insert Disney Plus show here, best episodes to watch for insert Clone Wars character here, to get their arc and be ready for insert next Star Wars media here, or how to read the High Republic in order. There are countless topics, and these just came off the top of my head, and I'm sitting here. Maybe this isn't the direction you want the Star Wars Underworld to go, but it could be 10 to 20 minute shorts, or even 30 minutes, just side episodes on YouTube. I don't know, just a random Tuesday thoughts the day before I visit Galaxy's Edge for my birthday. Thanks again, and may the Force be with you, Jonathan. Well, first and foremost, happy belated birthday. Hope you had fun at Galaxy's Edge. Hope you got to fly the Millennium Falcon, save the Resistance, have a cup of blue milk or something stronger, whatever it is you wanted to do for your birthday. And hopefully maybe you got to meet Chewie or Rey or some of the other characters that are walking around there at Galaxy's Edge. Yeah, we've talked a lot about Galaxy's Edge. We tend to talk about it when we go, right? So whenever one of us goes, that tends to bring up some stories or some new advice based on the new things that are going on there. But the closest thing to like a how-to or what to do in Galaxy's Edge that we did was like after one of our first visits, like way back in the summer of 2019. So I can understand not being able to find that episode. That would be digging through like 2 years worth of content. But yeah, some like sub videos or some guides. I love that, yeah. I think that could be really fun. And ultimately, like with Galaxy's Edge, there's no wrong way to do it. Like it's just, you just got to go in and have fun and just, immerse yourself. But we could certainly do some stuff like that. So something we'll keep in mind as we make plans going forward.
It's funny how I kind of did a quickie version of that with my cousin, who just decided to take her kids to Galaxy's Edge and went on Rise of the Resistance before I did. Okay, you guys, you know who you are. I don't like you anymore. We're not friends. We may be family. We're not friends anymore. Yeah, I remember just like geeking out, going like, "Oh, you got to go to Doc-Con, you got to do this and go over there and fly the Millennium Falcon," and like that was me geeking out for like 10 minutes to her. So that was a lot of fun. So yeah, like a more proper, like more researched version of that, I think would be great. Because yeah, there's a ton of people that haven't gone, and really, I've just a quickie version of that. You could see the whole thing in like 10 minutes. Like you could walk around Galaxy's Edge and see the whole thing pretty much. But it's experiencing and having a bit of insider knowledge, and even people, because I've only been to like each one of them like once or twice, so like I'm not an expert by any means. I would actually love to hear from somebody else who's been there like 100 times, like those Disney fanatic people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Ben, we got to get you on Rise of the Resistance. That should be our our celebration.
You're telling me
our celebration goal. I got to get you on there. You got to experience that. It's worth the wait. Although I saw a story about how in Florida the waits are sometimes like 4 or 5 hours for that ride. I waited like 90 minutes in California. Like 90 minutes. Maybe the second time it verged on. No, it wasn't 2 hours. It was like 90 minutes. I don't think it was quite.
They always say that the wait's longer so that you feel like it's moving faster than you think it's going to.
Yeah, maybe. Anyways, well, yeah, well, it's something we will be looking at and considering. And one thing that we will definitely do a how to prepare for or what to do for is Star Wars Celebration. So we'll give our advice from over a decade's worth of Star Wars celebrations that we've been going to collectively. So be on the lookout for that. Yep. So thank you, Jonathan. Again, happy birthday, and hope you had fun at Galaxy's Edge. All right. Final email for tonight. This one comes from Joel, and first time Joel's getting mentioned on the show that he didn't have to pay for.
This is Joel's reaction to it, though. I'm being sarcastic. Forget what that was.
Joel writes, "Hello, Underworld. I've talked a lot in the past about how the Mandoverse, as we call it, will tie into the sequel trilogy either directly or indirectly in various ways. However, I think that out of all of the Mandoverse stories, the one that will tie in the most, all caps, to the sequel trilogy will be none other than the Ahsoka series. The simple reason being, Ahsoka is Gandalf. Let me explain. Well, okay, first to backtrack, obviously, I think Ahsoka should have more of a tie-in to the sequel trilogy since Ahsoka is pretty much Skywalker saga adjacent at this point. I mean, she is Anakin's apprentice after all, and she knows Luke, so she has that tie-in there first and foremost. So it would make sense based on just that logic, but if one knows their Tolkien mythology, then one can see even deeper into how that tie-in might occur. Filoni pretty much outright says that Ahsoka is Gandalf, is the Gandalf of the story he's telling, and that his and her stories will be similar in terms of what they were doing. So let me explain some Middle Earth lore to you guys. If you know anything about Gandalf, it was that he was, along with the other wizards of Middle Earth, along with the other wizards of Middle Earth, were sent essentially by Middle Earth's gods to prepare the free people in case of Sauron's return. During this time, Gandalf was doing everything he could to plant the seeds in motion so that when Sauron returned, he would be defeated. Some of this was shown in the polarizing Hobbit films, which even though I like a lot, I like a lot of people did not enjoy them as much as Joel did. But I did like seeing Gandalf even back then preparing Middle Earth for the return of Sauron. So knowing this, we can now look at Star Wars and remind ourselves that during the time of the Mandalorian, a certain Dark Lord is preparing his own return as well. That's right, Palpatine, who is the Star Wars equivalent of Sauron, which ties into my theory that the Ahsoka show will not just be the search for Ezra and Thrawn, but also Ahsoka either knowingly or unknowingly preparing the galaxy for the return of Palpatine in Episode 9. How? It's hard to say, but I do have one theory. Think back to the final moment on Exegol when all the Jedi voices came to Rey in her hour of need, not just Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon, but also Mace Windu, Kanan, and a few others. How did all these Jedi come to Rey and speak when some of them did not even get the Force Ghost training? Well, I think Ahsoka may have something to do with this. I like to think it was Ahsoka who had something going on in the spirit realm so that when the time was right, it would affect the world of the living, thus allowing for Rey to have the strength needed to finish off Palpatine once and for all. Also, like Gandalf, I don't think Ahsoka will die, but she will merely return to the realm of Mortis when her task is done, as Gandalf said when he is headed into the west to the gray heavens and the undying lands of Middle-earth. Plus, for all we know, Thrawn may be in league with Palpatine, and as much as I would prefer him to be independent from what's going on with the First Order and Exegol, it's always possible that they go in that direction. So there is that. To draw a Lord of the Rings parallel, Thrawn might be that white albino orc Azog from the Hobbit movies, who was sort of the main villain, but in league with Sauron. See, I thought I had finally learned enough about Lord of the Rings that I could be like on board with most of this. You lost me there.
I don't even remember much about Azog. Yeah. I do know who he's talking about, though.
So that is some of my reasoning for why I think the Ahsoka series, out of all of the Mandalorian spin-off shows we have, will tie in the most to the sequel trilogy, especially if you follow Dave Filoni's Gandalf logic. Curious to know what you think. Well, Chris, I think you're the biggest Lord of the Rings fan of us. What do you think? What do you think?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense based on, if Filoni's going for those themes. Like, I think Joel articulated it very well. And I think within the Star Wars universe, it also kind of makes sense. Yeah, I think that the whole idea of the world between worlds and like the spirit realm and all this stuff with Ahsoka, it's gonna open up a lot of possibilities in the show that we don't really have in other shows. So that makes sense that it's gonna have the best ties to the future because it has a way to get to the future that is different than just waiting for it to happen. So
Ahsoka's just sitting there looking at her watch going, geez, all right.
yeah.
How many more years is this?
Right. So that makes sense. So I think that's really exciting. I was just thinking about how we could wrap up the storylines of Rebels and how, Ezra could come back in and Thrawn and all these things. But and I'm thinking about how maybe Ahsoka could eventually play into the whole like Mando show off between Bo-Katan and Din and all that stuff. But really what I really want is them to tie things into the sequels. I want to see more lead up into that, and I feel like this would be a good way to do it, to use the character of Ahsoka to connect things and add to the sequels and to the Rise of Skywalker. I think would be an absolutely brilliant move to do. It's going to kind of tie the universe more together because it does feel kind of disconnected right now. It feels like they're doing a lot of work, obviously, to connect the original trilogy to the Disney Plus shows. It seems like they're starting to add more elements of the prequels in as well, but they're really missing a lot of sequel related stuff right now, which again makes sense with the timeline to an extent because these are prequel shows to that the distant past. But at the same time, at some point, they've got to start tying things together. And I think this would be a great way to lay the foundations for that because you're existing in a realm that is outside space and time. So you can do that without having to do like a hard time jump that might be confusing. It might skip over a lot of events and character development that they might want to have play out over multiple years.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Ben.
Well, I was just going to say, like, I think from a completely out of universe, real world storytelling point of view, it is interesting and I think easier for them and logically speaking to start leading up to this. We know that, what happened in Return of the Jedi wasn't the end, that we're leading up to the sequel trilogy. We're leading up to it all comes down to Rey with 2 lightsabers facing off against Palpatine on Exegol. That's where this is all leading to. And, it's interesting to like backtrack on that and go like, okay, where all this is going. And the fact that even in The Mandalorian, we're like, oh, something's out there, something's coming, there's a new threat, whatever, the Empire's back, all this kind of stuff, to kind of go back and kind of play with that. And obviously there'll be new reveals, but still going towards that ultimate end goal. Which we all know is coming. And yeah, would it have been cool if we could have got this in real time and we could have, found out about this through, years and years of storytelling, but, it wasn't like that. Now the ending is there. They don't have to worry about stepping on the toes of the sequel trilogy when it's already been made and everyone's seen it. So they can do whatever they want and lead up to this. And I like the idea of like, I liked the idea of what they did in the Clone Wars with giving Yoda kind of this, pulling Yoda back from the whole thing and giving him a macro view of this, and the fact that he kind of knew Order 66 and all this kind of stuff was going down. That the Jedi themselves were aware of the fact that like the clone army had been created by the Sith, and they were like, okay, well, we can't do anything about it now. Let's just let this play out. Like, I like the idea of like maybe Ahsoka or other Jedi or whoever's out there knows something's coming, knows Palpatine's doing something, knows whatever, and can't really do anything about it. They don't know where Exegol is. They can't find it. Luke's out there looking for it in this book, and he can't find it. So, what does that mean? And ultimately, preparing for the worst, preparing for that, that Exegol moment, that Sauron moment, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, with Ahsoka being Gandalf, just look at the end of Rebels. Look at the epilogue. Clearly, there's something going on there. Clearly, this is obviously Filoni's making this parallel for a reason. You said something interesting, Chris, a couple minutes ago about you're thinking about how Ahsoka could factor into the sort of the climax of the Mando verse story and all that stuff. And I'd been thinking the same way. And just in the conversation that you both have been having, I've sort of turned away from that. I now think that I wonder if the Ahsoka series, which they're promoting as a limited series, quote unquote, might take Ahsoka off the board. That, the Ahsoka show will provide Din Djarin and everybody else in the larger story some new allies in the form of Ezra Bridger and Sabine Wren and everybody. But it might take Ahsoka herself off the board because she's got something more important to do. She's got to guard Mortis. She's got to study in the world between worlds. She's got to do something else that lays the groundwork for that moment at the end of the Rise of Skywalker that Joel is talking about in this email. And a conversation that I've had a lot with my friend Din over the years about what Din the musician, not the Mandalorian. I don't have conversations with fictional characters, much as I might like. But we've talked a lot
as I hold up Grogu.
Yeah, but we've talked a lot over the years about like what is Ahsoka's endgame, and I'm of the opinion that Ahsoka's never going to die. They're going to find some way to lock her off, so that she doesn't have to be a part of every story, so that we're not always watching every story going, why isn't Ahsoka part of this? But when the time is right, when it's needed, she can be brought in to dispel some important piece of wisdom to whoever the hero of that new story is, which we've already seen her do on multiple occasions. She did it for Ezra in Rebels. She's done it for Din Djarin on Mandalorian, and she does it for Rey in The Rise of Skywalker. In that moment, she's among the voices, giving Rey that push that she needs to get back up and face down her grandfather and end him once and for all. So I think they'll find some way of she'll retreat to Mortis, or hang out in the world between worlds, or something like that, so that when they do the sequel trilogy, or do a story that's 500 years in the future, then perhaps she can be brought in to be part of that story again as a mentor who can just come in and give that extra little push, that extra little something that our new heroes need. That doesn't even have to be part of the main story. It doesn't have to be part of episode 10. It can be in the side shows if that's how you want to do it. But it could be in episode 10. You've got, we've seen live action Ahsoka now. She's part of the big story. So
and I love this talk of Mortis that Joel and Hannah are talking about in the chat. And the fact that something that's overlooked, I think, that I forget about, is the fact that, like, Ahsoka went to Mortis and she died, okay? She literally died, and they brought her back to life with the daughter's help. Like, that's a big thing. And was it a dream? Was it not a dream? No time passed where there, whatever. That debate is another story. The fact is that happened, and Ahsoka especially is connected to Mortis. And something else is overlooked, I think, and something that I, again, forget about, is the fact that Colin Trevorrow was literally going to put Mortis in a Star Wars movie. He was going to put it in episode 9. Yep. That was a thing that was going to happen. Yeah. That still boggles my mind. And so I think we got some hints at it, obviously, in Rebels. I think Mortis is probably going to come back in a big way. I think Filoni's going to use that, and we're going to get more of that because it's just something that's out there, and it's a huge part of the Fourth mythology.
Yeah, the logo for the Ahsoka show is so World Between Worlds. And what was part of the key to the World Between Worlds and Rebels? Well, it was the painting of the Mortis gods. And who's following Ahsoka around all the time? It's Morai, who's the convor, who seems to be some sort of representation of the sister, of the daughter from Mortis, who sacrificed herself so that Ahsoka could live. And the whole thing of did Mortis happen or did it not? Well, as Dumbledore once said, of course this is taking place inside your head, Harry, but why on earth should that mean it's not real? And I think that's the case with Mortis, of like the characters experienced that. Whether you want to take it literally or not is beside the point. What they went through that, the three of them. Ahsoka, whether she actually died or whether it was just sort of in her mind, she experienced death and rebirth in some way. And that changes you. And maybe you don't fully appreciate that as a 16 or 17-year-old kid. But when you're Ahsoka's age in The Mandalorian or Ahsoka's age in the Rise of Skywalker, maybe you're thinking about it a little bit more. Maybe it's something that you're grappling with. Something from your past that you have to make sense of. Why me? Why was Ahsoka the first person that we've seen on screen be healed with the Force, brought back to life in the same way that, Rey will do for Ben Solo, and then Ben Solo will do for Rey. Ahsoka was the first one, and that's got to be something that's weighing on her mind. And I think it would shock me if Dave is not going to explore some of these ideas in the Ahsoka show. I'll be fascinated to see how he catches up everybody on the backstory, or if he even feels he needs to. Maybe he can just say, go do your homework. I'm not sure that's the right idea, but maybe that's what he'll say.
No, it'll just be the show's going on. It gets to a really dramatic moment, and like Ahsoka's fixing to like step into the world within worlds to go to Mortis and like that. There's a big man, and the screen just stops. And just Filoni just walks into frame like, hey, guys, just go watch Clone Wars. It's on Disney Plus. You can watch it right now. Just click out of this browser and go to the other thing and watch all 7 seasons. It's right there. And then come back.
Hi, I'm Dave Filoni. You may remember me as the guy who made this show that you're watching right now. To understand what happens next, you really should go check the show out. It'll be fascinating to see. I'm so excited for the Ahsoka show. But
me too.
It's a year away at least at this point still. So.
Yeah.
But they'll be filming it soon, so who knows what leaks and other info may yet come out about it, which we'll discuss in the appropriate segment of the show should that happen.
That's right.
But that's it. That's what we got for emails for this week. If you want to send in your thoughts on anything we've discussed here tonight or any recent shows, you can send them in swunderworld@gmail.com. We will get to them eventually. Sometimes we get to them really, really soon. Like I think Joel sent in this one that we just talked about like the other day.
Yep.
Sometimes we'll take months and it'll be ages until we get to them. It just all depends. But we will eventually get to them. So send them in swunderworld@gmail.com.
So if you have thoughts on the premiere of Star Wars Rebels, we want to hear them.
Yeah, send them in. Whatever you want to talk about in Star Wars. Could be current, could be old, something we talked about here, something you think we should be talking about here. Send them all in. swunderworld@gmail.com. And with that, we'll begin to wrap things up for this week.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching on the YouTube, and thank you for listening on your favorite podcast apps. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you like the video and you subscribe to our channel if you haven't, and make sure you leave a review on any podcast apps that lets you do that if you haven't, because that also helps us out a lot and it'd be greatly appreciated. We, of course, will be back with another episode of the show, same time, same place next weekend. That time is 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays, and that place is on the Star Wars Underworld YouTube channel. Dominic, thank you so much for hosting tonight.
It was my pleasure, as always. Great fun getting into everything, whether it's the Ahsoka show, Solo, a Star Wars story, Shadows of the Sith. That's what that book was called. I couldn't remember for a second. I'm so excited. I forgot the name. And of course, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Mandalorian Season 3, those shows that are coming up very, very soon. It's going to be, we say it all the time, but it's such a fun time to be a Star Wars fan. And if this week of news wasn't evidence enough for you with the books, the shows, the movies, the games and everything that's going on, the conventions. I don't know what we can do to convince you. But I think if you're here, you probably don't need convincing. So yeah, that's it for me. It's been another fun show. Keep your eyes out on social medias for the DIY Hero's Journey panel from Toronto Comic Con, and we'll hopefully you'll be able to see that within the next week. And yeah, we'll see everybody again in 7 days' time.
There's Percy. That's why you got to go watch on YouTube so you can see Percy the Puffer Pig. He has made his return. Oh. Awesome. At Dominic J25 is where you can follow Dominic on social media. Ben, thank you so much for hosting as well.
Oh, this is a pleasure as always. So many things to look forward to. So many things coming up very soon. It kind of hit me. I bought my plane tickets like last night. I'm like, wow, Celebration's like right around the corner. It was so far, it was so long, for so long, and now it's like right here on top of us. So yeah, it's gonna be a wild next couple months and the next year, and you know, it's just gonna keep going. We just come to accept it, and yeah, a lot to look forward to. Who knows what we'll be talking about next week, but we will be here to talk about it.
That's right. You can follow Ben on social media at Ben Hart with no E. You can follow me at Seek3PO. And of course, you can follow the SWU as a whole at the SWU on your favorite social media sites. Thanks to everyone who has super chatted, especially Joel, who's very consistent with it every week. So thanks for the financial support, Joel. We always appreciate it. Sounds like we're going to have to buy you many meals if we're at the same place at the same time in a few months. Thank you for this. And of course, thanks to everybody who supports us on Patreon, patreon.com/TheSWU. We're right now coming up with our ideas for using some of our money to make some cool merch and hand out some things that we can give to everyone at Star Wars Celebration. So if you're planning to go, leave a tiny little extra room in your carry-on for some stuff. If you can track us down there. And of course, that's where you can find our bonus shows. That's where you can get rewarded with some of our Patreon exclusive merch. And speaking of merch, Culture Slate store, there's some cool stuff up there. We got CAD Shot the Sheriff merchandise. We've got Wizard merchandise like the shirt that I'm wearing right now. A bunch of other cool stuff like Ion Cannon merch as well over at cultureslate.com/store. And as always, check out our friends, Star Wars Culture, Ion Cannon, and Chatter Squadron. We had 2 of those 3 parties in the chat tonight, so thanks to Hannah and Joel for stopping by and chatting with us tonight. Make sure you check out their shows. All right, that is it. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back next week. Until then, for Ben and Dominic and all the other great people at the Star Wars Underworld, my name is Chris, and may the Force be with you.
It's a wrap.